and Tony Rosemeyer. You will have seen Tony's name often in recent newsletters. He's donated some really fascinating Cape stories, and he's also a leader of the Explorers Group. I'm grateful to both Laura and Tony for offering their services. However, we still have a place waiting for one more committee member, and I'm wondering if that could be you. Membership payments are going very well and are due on the 1st of March. Don't forget, if you have any queries, do contact Hester Slayman, who will be more than happy to help you. Although I do need to ask you to be very careful when paying your fees, and be sure to pay into the account of the U3A False Bay. The details of their banking details are on the application and renewal form. And make sure you don't pay into Cape Town's bank account. I believe Cape Town have received quite a few payments from people who are not their members. So the payments can't be recorded and they can't trace the payees. So what happens then is that payees think that they're members, and meanwhile they're not members anywhere because their fee hasn't gone into the correct account. I think the confusion arises because as a member of U3A, any chapter, we're permitted to visit and take part in any other U3A's activities and meetings. And I think maybe some people go to Cape Town's meetings and perhaps think they'll join while they're there. Whether that's they're having physical meetings or not at the moment, I'm not sure. I don't think so. Anyway, in other words, False Bay fees must be paid into False Bay's account, or you won't be listed as a paid-up member, and you won't receive any communications from us. Excuse me. If you're not sure on this point, please contact Hester. Course fees are different. They're paid as usual, directly to your course leaders. Well, we've got a very exciting speaker lined up. I hope she does a lot better than I'm doing at the moment. And I, for one, am looking forward to it very much. So I'm grateful to Steve Malt, our speaker seeker, and I'm going to hand you over to him now to introduce the speaker to you. Over to you, Steve.
Thanks very much indeed, Mary. Good morning, everyone. Excuse my dog, which is occasionally barking here. And let me add my welcome to today's speaker, Sarah Waries. Sarah grew up in landlocked Nepal. Yes, Nepal, not Natal, which must be a first for a U3A speaker. She was always passionate about wildlife and conservation, but her interest in the marine environment did not develop until she first came to Cape Town in 2004. After spending time as a research assistant in Zambia and completing a degree in zoology at Southampton University, she came to Cape Town to study the Chacma baboon for her honours thesis. I think we've all had experiences with baboons here. She fell in love with the area and managed a range of environmental programs here before starting at Sharkspotters in 2008. Now, as the CEO, she is responsible for the management, growth, and strategic development of the organisation, a job that fuels her passion for combining conservation, science, job creation, and community upliftment for the benefit of our natural and social environment. Sarah has a diverse job history, and I will pick out just one. At the Wimbledon Tennis Championships in 2008, she designed and implemented the first recycling system at the tournament, achieving a 50% waste recycling rate. Congratulations on that. It's also worth noting that Sarah is a project leader for the Save Our Seas Foundation, an organisation based in Geneva, Switzerland. Their website is well worth a visit. Please remember, if you have any questions, use the Q&A facility at the bottom of your Zoom screen, and Sarah will address these after the presentation. Without further ado, over to you, Sarah.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I love doing U3A talks. I haven't done one for quite a while. Did one in Cape Town many years ago, probably 7 or 8 years ago. I'm just going to share my screen with you, hopefully. There you go, from the beginning. Okay, perfect. So today, as Steve said, I'm from Sharkspotters, and I wanted to speak to you about something which I'm sure that you have all heard a lot about. In fact, it keeps coming up in the media. Just the other day, there was another BBC News article, and really it's, where are the white sharks? What's happened to False Bay's iconic white sharks? Which is the reason, the white sharks are the reason why the Sharkspotters program started all the way back in 2004. So obviously we know that False Bay is Cape Town is the most beautiful city on earth. And what you may not have known is that historically it's had the second largest aggregation of white sharks on earth as well. The largest being just up the road in Gansbaai. So traditionally we've had quite a large presence of white sharks in False Bay. And
It's blocked.
Okay.
That's the trouble, is there, Wi-Fi dropped.
But Sarah, we seem to have lost you. Sarah, we've lost your sound.
Anybody else lost this one? Got a better sound.
Hello, Steve.
Yeah, I apologize. I just wanted to issue apologies to our members if they are still on. We do have a technical issue here, so we'll obviously get back to you as soon as possible. Arthur, I'll give Sarah a ring and just see whether I can sort something out there. Okay.
Yeah, I think she needs to rejoin the session, Steve.
Yeah. Okay.
Frustrations.
hello, can you hear me? I'm so sorry. I have really reliable internet in the office and it just cut out completely. I do apologize. Is everybody still there?
Yes.
Okay, I'm now doing it off my cell phone. I'm so sorry about that. It normally doesn't have it. Can everybody hear me okay? If it's from my cell phone, is that all right?
Perfect. Perfect.
Okay, let me share the screen. I'm so sorry. That's like, doesn't happen normally. Bear with me. Right. We were talking about exciting things about sharks. Okay. So I was talking about the white shark activity. There's annual fluctuations. We have seen every year sort of different levels of shark activity. Some years, 2010 to 2012, it was very high. But we've really seen since about 2015 a really significant reduction in white shark sightings. We used to average about 205 shark sightings a year on our beaches. And then in the last 2 years, it's gone down from, in 2018, it was about 50, 2019, there was 1 or 2, and 2020, we didn't have any. So we saw a similar decline in about 2005 to 2009, but it didn't go down to the numbers that we are now. So now it just seems to be that much more significant, the decline in white shark sightings that we've had. Interestingly, we had the decline in 2005 to 2009, and then 2010, we had a big increase in white shark activity, and that was also when we had a fatal shark bite in Fishhook as well. So really the question is, what is going on here? Why have we suddenly had this big reduction in white sharks? And this is what we're trying to figure out. So at the beginning of 2020, there was a big push from the public. The people were very concerned about the reduction in white shark activity, and it actually urged the Minister for the Environment to sort of had this big review of their national plan of action, and she got together an expert panel which had shark scientists from South Africa, fishery scientists, international scientists, and they got together to have a look at all the data that had been collected so far to try and figure out what exactly the issue was and why there was fewer sharks. So there was two main questions that they tried to answer. The first one is, where have the sharks gone? So we've seen a reduction, a massive reduction here in False Bay, and also in Gansbaai, they've seen a reduction as well. Not quite to the same extent, but definitely a lot less shark activity than they used to have. So from the data that we're picking together at the moment, it appears that there has been a eastward shift in white shark activity. So there's been a big decline on the southwest coast in False Bay and in Gansbaai, but it does seem to have picked up in the Mossel Bay, Algoa Bay area. Off the southeast coast. So it seems like that movement has happened moving along the coast, which means that it doesn't really appear that it has been a big population crash, like suddenly within 2 years all the white sharks were killed. That doesn't seem to be the obvious outcome at the moment. We do have a number of shark scientists working on it, and there is a PhD student, Dylan Orion, who is looking, and you can see here on this graph, that it shows there's 3 aggregation sites for white sharks there. False Bay at the top, Gansbaai in the middle, and Mossel Bay at the bottom. And you can see that from about 2015, or just before 2015 for Gansbaai, the blue means an increasing number of sightings, and the red is a decreasing number. So you can see that in False Bay and Gansbaai, the number has decreased. The number of white shark sightings has decreased in the last 5 years, but in Mossel Bay, it does appear to have been an increase. So that's interesting. What we're now trying to find out is which sharks are going up to Mossel Bay, because there's anecdotal evidence that the very large sharks, which we often saw in False Bay and in Gansbaai, the sort of like 4 to 5 meter sharks aren't going up there, and that it appears to be more subadult sharks. So there's lots of research going on, lots of people doing PhDs trying to figure out what is going on, and lots of collaboration with scientists, which is really great. We don't really know, and whether we'll know exactly is yet to be seen. But there's 2 main theories that seem quite reliable. The first theory is overfishing, and I'll talk about that in a second. And then the second theory is what we call the evil sea panda, but is essentially just an orca, so orca predation. So in False Bay, in South Africa, we have actually, what people are quite surprised about is we have a legal shark fishery. So, you know, there's a lot of media attention on how shark fishing is bad, and it is not the greatest thing. But we do have, people are legally allowed to commercially catch sharks here. And in recent years, we've seen a big increase in particularly the demersal shark longlining, which is, so demersal means at the bottom of the ocean, and longlining is obviously when they put thousands of hooks out for sharks. And this shark fishery happens between sort of Cape Agulhas and East London. And it targets a wide range of sharks, smoothhound sharks, soupfin sharks, St. Joseph sharks, which are not actually sharks, they're chimeras, but they're called sharks, duskies, bronzies, a wide range of sharks. And so one of the theories is that the shark fishery has increased effort in the last few years. And that increase in shark fishing effort has meant that there's less prey available for the white sharks to eat. So the theory goes that they eat these smaller shark species, and therefore there's less prey available for the white sharks, and that they've moved. You might be surprised to hear, so that's the top left of your screen is a smoothhound shark, and the right is a soupfin shark. You might be surprised to know that the shark fish actually really the one that we have here in South Africa is not actually aimed at their fins. It's actually for the fish and chip market in Australia. So if you go to a fish and chip shop in Australia, they will serve you flake and chips, and that's actually shark meat. So we have, even in False Bay here in Gordons Bay, there's a shark processing plant where they catch sharks and they process them, fillet them, and send them off to Australia to be used in the fish and chip trade. Yeah. This is a bit of a scientific graph, and I was trying to find something easier to explain it, but it's not really that easy. So this is looking at soup fins over the last 60 years. And just very briefly, the green, it starts in 1950, and you can see it's the number of soup-fin sharks that have been caught since 1950. You can see that in the 60s, 50s and 60s, there was a lot of sharks caught, and then it crashed like quite considerably. And what this government review has looked at is that actually soup-fin sharks and smoothhounds similarly, their populations have crashed long before the fishing effort increased. And in fact, the fishing effort has increased because there's not very many sharks. So it's a very big issue that this fishery doesn't appear to be very sustainable, but it doesn't really link too closely with the reduction in white shark sightings that was seen in False Bay and Gansbaai, which happened just in the last 5 years. And you can see that this fishery has been in trouble for quite a bit longer than that. As a side note, coming out of this review of the plan of action, the Fisheries Department have actually introduced a number of restrictions to try and help the shark populations recover, the soup-fin and the smoothhound shark populations. So that's something that's quite good that's come out of it. So it's possible that the longline demersal shark fishery is having an impact on white shark distribution and perhaps white shark abundance, but we're not convinced that that's why we suddenly in False Bay have not had white shark sightings. There's a few reasons for that. One is we still have an awful lot of food here. So Seal Island is overflowing with seals. There's 70,000 Cape fur seals on Seal Island. We've had, the last few years, have had some of the best yellowtail catches for years. So the white sharks were coming into False Bay to feed in the winter months on seals at Seal Island, and in the summer months, they'd come and feed on the fish on the inshore. All that food is still here in False Bay. The demersal shark fishery does not happen in False Bay. It happens along the south coast. Incidentally, where we're seeing an increase in white shark activity. So if it was the demersal shark fishery that was having a massive impact on the shark distribution, we would expect the white sharks to not be in the area where that fishery happens, but that's not the case. Lastly, if you look at a white shark's diet, so there's been a number of studies done, and the white sharks that have been caught in the KZN shark nets have been dissected. Over 200 individuals were dissected and their stomach contents analyzed. And they found 40 different species of marine animal that white sharks eat, ranging from seals to squid to fish. Interestingly, they didn't find any smoothhound or soup-fin sharks in there. So that's not to say that they never eat them, but they don't seem to be a significant part of their diet. So that further adds evidence to the fact that it doesn't seem likely that the demersal shark fishery is the cause for the white sharks not being here in False Bay. So if that's not the cause, what is? Well, the second theory, and this is an artist's impression, this is not a real picture. I wish it was, this is not a real picture. No one's got that close to seeing anything that exciting, but it's predation pressure from orcas. So we have had orcas here in False Bay. This is from the 1880s, where there was a pod of orcas or killer whales washed up in Simonstown. And orcas have been seen in the bay for many, many years. And I remember when I started at Sharkspotters, there being big pods of orcas. You might have seen there was a documentary made about them. And these orcas that we've historically seen in False Bay have been orcas that feed on dolphins. And it's quite astonishing to see massive pods of dolphins, and they're happily swimming along, and then suddenly you see them go all frenzied and the orcas come. And it's amazing coordinated cooperative hunting, and they're hunting orcas. But we've seen something different in the last 5 years, because if it was just orcas, any orca that was having an impact on the sharks, then you would have expected them to disappear previously. But since 2015, we've seen the arrival of orcas that are shark specialists. So each orca group is sort of a specific ecotype, and they feed on different things. So some orcas feed on cetaceans, dolphins, some feed on fish, some feed on sharks. And we have seen since 2015 the arrival of this pair, port and starboard. They were actually first seen once in 2013, but then since 2015, they've been seen regularly in False Bay. And this has coincided with when we've seen the reduction in shark activity. And interestingly, when we saw port and starboard arrive, and they're very easy to recognize because their dorsal fins flop over. One to the left is port, the one to starboard is right, the one to right is starboard, sorry. And when we saw them arrive, we also saw this arrive. So we started seeing white shark carcasses wash up on beaches in Gansbaai and Straysbaai, and then here in False Bay, we found 7 gill carcasses. And at first, we really didn't know what had happened to these sharks. When the 7 gill ones washed up in False Bay, we thought actually that it was fishermen, because just the livers had been taken out, and we thought, oh, the fishermen are using it for bait, and it was. And then very quickly, when we started looking at the sharks and we did necropsies on them, we were able to see these telltale puncture wounds. And I don't know, I'm not sure if my mouse points, but on the pectoral fins, you can see it well on the 7 gill on the top right. And they're tooth indentations. And so this was, and they're on both sets of pectoral fins of the sharks. And so we sent these off to some mammal specialists, and the mammal specialists came back and said, yes, it was orcas. This does appear to have been predation by orcas. And this is the first time this has been recorded in South Africa, and it's really quite astonishing to see. So as I mentioned, just the livers of the sharks had been removed. So we were finding completely intact shark carcasses with just the livers removed. And this amazing series of photos on the left-hand side of the screen it wasn't taken here, I think it was taken in New Zealand, it's orcas and a small tiger shark. And you can see on the bottom left, you can see them working together, one on each pectoral fin, and they essentially just tear open the pectoral girdle, sort of like the chest of the shark, and then they suck out the liver. So you may be wondering, like, why the liver? Well, in a white shark, the liver is 1/3 of its body weight. So that's, a white shark's about a ton, it's about 330 kilos of liver. That's an awful lot. And the livers are full of lipids. They're incredibly nutrient rich. The sharks use them for buoyancy and also to store energy. So you've got these incredibly large livers that have a lot of energy in them. And so that's why the orcas appear to be sort of like sucking them out like a smoothie almost. But you may wonder, like, why don't they bother to, if they've caught the shark and they've done that, why don't they bother to eat the rest of the shark? And this is really the answer. This is an incredibly magnified image of shark skin. And shark skin is made up of what we call dermal denticles, which are essentially like little teeth. And it's incredibly, and the it's like a suit of armor. And if you touch it, it feels like sandpaper. And so for an animal that eats sharks, there's a lot of dental wear. And so when you look at orca teeth, and if you look at different ecotypes of orcas, ones that specialize on mammals and ones that specialize on sharks, you can see that the shark specialist orcas have incredibly worn down teeth. So therefore they want handling them as little as possible. That's why they developed this amazing technique, and orcas are incredibly intelligent to just get the pectoral fins, tear open the pelvic girdle, and just suck out the liver, which means that they don't have to wear down their teeth on the other parts of the shark skin. So if you look at this as our shark spotting data again, and if you look at the reduction in shark activity from 2015, you'll see that it completely coincides with the arrival of the orcas. So we do believe that there is a strong correlation. It's without further research and easily more accessible research, it's hard to say exactly that this is the absolute definite reason, but it does appear like this would explain why we've had less shark activity in False Bay. Because if you look at the data for the reported sightings of port and starboard in South Africa, you'll see that they were first seen once in 2013. And thank you very much to Dave Hurwitz from Simonstown Boat Company for this data. You see they're first seen in 2013, but then from 2017, there was a big increase in seeing them, 14 sightings of them in 2017. And that's when we saw our white shark sightings, both in the inshore with Sharkspotters and at Seal Island, sort of crash completely. That's when we saw very, very little shark activity. Further to sort of like corroborate this evidence, if you look on the right-hand side of the screen at sightings of port and starboard were seen, you'll see that they have been seen kind of along the whole coast, and these killer whales travel massive distances. They've also been seen in Luderitz and Langebaan and everywhere. But you'll see that they visited False Bay 27 times in the last few years. far more than anywhere else. Gansbaai they visited 9 times, but False Bay 27 times. So that really adds weight to why we particularly have been badly impacted by the reduction in shark activity compared to other areas. Really, I think they just came in, they sort of stumbled upon False Bay and then just found that it was full of delightful sharks with our wonderful ecosystem, and then decided to keep coming back. So they don't stay for long periods of time. They're only ever here for a couple of days, but the impact that they have seems to be very big. So you may say, whatever, who cares? The sharks aren't here. We can swim safely. We don't need to worry about it. But it's sadly not that simple. The white sharks play a massive role in the ecology of False Bay, but also in the economy. And just quickly to go to the economy, obviously white shark cage diving is quite a huge thing in False Bay. It's one of the best places to come and see them. And that economy brings a lot of money, sector brings a lot of money into the economy, but also it's not just the people who go on the cage diving boats. It doesn't just create jobs and bring money in there. It's also all the tourism that comes with it. People come to South Africa specifically to see the white sharks. People come to Simonstown to go out on the boat to go and see the white sharks. So you have B&Bs, restaurants, even little coffee shops struggling because of the reduction in number of people coming to see white sharks because there just aren't any there. From an ecological perspective, obviously white sharks are apex predators and they play a very important role in the structure and stability of the ecosystem. They regulate the abundance of their prey and of competitors, both by direct predation, but also by changes in their behavior. And when you remove the white sharks, you start to see this destabilizing of the system and sort of a trophic cascade of an increase in mesopredators, which are the smaller predators, the bronze whalers, the seals, which can then have knock-on impacts. And one example is possibly with competition with penguins. Then if you have a big increase in a seal population, then it could compete with penguins, which are incredibly vulnerable for the same prey. So we really need the white sharks for this ecosystem health and resilience, and to increase biodiversity, or to maintain biodiversity, I should say. And we've already started seeing changes in False Bay from the white sharks not being here. So at Seal Island in False Bay, we never used to see 7-gill sharks, which are the sharks on the left. We never used to see them during the day at Seal Island. We have acoustic data which says that they went to Seal Island at night. They also feed on Cape fur seals. But since the white sharks have gone, they can now be found at Seal Island during the day, and people are doing cage diving with them there. They used to aggregate at Miller's Point. I'm sure many of you heard that you could literally just walk in the water at Miller's Point and you could dive with multiple 7-gill sharks. They used that as a refuge area to sort of hide from their competitor, which was the white shark, and a potential predator. And whereas now there are no white sharks there, they've now left that refuge area. And so you're really hard pushed to find a 7-gill at Miller's Point now. Similarly, in Gansbaai, they now have a lot more bronze whalers at their cage diving sites. And with the white sharks not being there, they now offer cage diving with their bronze whalers. Here in False Bay, the Sharkspotters have seen an increase in bronze whaler sharks close to the shore during the spring and summer months. So back to this graph again, and you'll see the reduction in white shark activity, that's the white lines, and then you'll see this increase in bronze whaler sharks that we've seen close to shore, which is the red columns. So we have started to see these changes already here in False Bay, but we're not sure how significant. Those are very short-term changes. We're not sure how significant in the long term these might be. Just a few take-home messages to sum that up. It's still unclear why we're seeing the decline in white sharks here in False Bay. We think it probably has to do with the presence of the orcas and the predation pressure, but we cannot prove anything at the moment. The decline does not appear to be at a national level, so we still have scientists working on this, but it does appear to be more of an eastward shift. But until also we have all that data together, we won't be able to say. It may be that there has been a slight reduction in the population, and it's very important that we monitor this because white sharks are a threatened species and protected. We need more research to understand the drivers behind these changing patterns. So it may be that this is part of long-term ecological cycles we don't know at the moment. And we could already seeing the impacts on the ecosystem here, but we're not sure the long-term impacts that they may be. The prey is still here, and we are very hopeful that the white sharks will come back. So the future is really just, it's so important for us to continue monitoring. So with the Sharkspotters and our applied research program, to continue working with white shark scientists along the whole coastline to better understand what is going on, and to try and identify any sort of anthropogenic factors that may be feeding into this. So the new regulations for the demersal longline fishing, well, it's actually for all shark fishing in South Africa now. They've introduced a slot limit, which is basically a maximum size. So you're not allowed to catch a shark that's over 1.3 meters in length, which means that the larger mature sharks are allowed to reproduce, stay in the population, reproduce, and increase the fecundity. And so that's really brilliant, because it means basically, so white sharks have always been protected and no one's ever allowed to catch them since 1991. But it means that bronze whaler sharks, all those sort of like middle-sized sharks will probably be too big for the fisheries. And so those will be allowed to stabilize their populations. We have had in the last year or so very sporadic sightings of white sharks. This was taken in January 2020 by an aerial patrol by our colleague Alison Cock at Sandparks. This was about a 4-meter white shark that they saw off Makassar on, I think it was the 12th of January 2020. And then just recently in December 2020 as well, a shore angler who was targeting bronze whaler sharks, he's a catch and release bronze whaler sharks, it's legal to do. He cast his line in, had a bit of a fight, and then pulled up a small white shark. And immediately, as soon as he realized, there's video footage online of it. As soon as he realized the white shark, he did exactly what he was supposed to do, which was run up, cut the line as close to the shark as possible, and let the shark go. So we are still, there does seem to be sporadic sightings. Even this week, one of our spotters on the mountain saw a shark, and he said he was pretty sure it was a white shark. But sporadic sightings and 1 or 2 white shark sightings aren't the same as having the sort of aggregation come back, the numbers that we were seeing before. And so until we see those big numbers return, we can't sort of rest easy until we know that the white sharks are safe and that they're back in False Bay. Thank you very much. I don't know if I've gone too long or not long enough, but if there's any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them.
Sarah, thank you very much indeed. That really is a fantastic picture of our local sea environment, and certainly the orcas. One question I had, if you don't mind me asking mine first, do orcas eat seals? Starboard and port. Are they likely to eat seals if they have the opportunity? And if so, why don't they stay around Seer Island?
So no, you do get orcas that eat seals, and there's so many different ecotypes of orcas. You get the orcas that eat the salmon in Alaska, and orcas that specialize in eating squid, and then there's evil ones that push the seals off the ice floats, and they're incredibly calculating. But so the orcas that we've seen in False Bay are mostly the ones that eat the dolphins. So we've seen them hunting dolphins, and then port and starboard. And then I'm pretty sure, because this is the False Bay U3A, you all have heard about, I think they've called it Etty, the orca that we've had for the last couple of weeks here. So that orca, we think, is feeding on fish. They did actually witness it eating a sunfish. We think that orca is eating fish. And we don't know, but don't think it's a shark-eating orca. It's very unusual that it's hung around, particularly on its own. And when it first arrived, the whaler dolphin scientists thought that perhaps it was sick, because we did have an orca wash up in, I think, Mossel Bay or Port Elizabeth a couple of weeks before that. So they thought maybe it was sick and it was going to strand. But after they monitored it for so long, and I don't know if you heard the most amazing recording of it, because of a first acoustic recording of a killer whale in South Africa, and it was just amazing. You can find it if you look on Sea Search's Facebook page. But so now they think that it might just be a young male, well, not young male, it's full grown, it's adult, but sort of like a younger adult male moving away obviously from its maternal pod, looking for somewhere else to go, and has just come across a whole load of fish. So we haven't seen any orcas here that eat seals. They do in some areas, because otherwise, yeah, they just hang out like the sharks did, hang out at Seal Island. But the seals at Seal Island now are very relaxed. They're having quite a nice time.
Okay.
Without all that predation pressure. Yes.
Yeah, I'm sure. Then a second question before we go to the Q&As. You say we're seeing quite a lot of bronzes around. Are they a danger to people, surfers and such like in the sea, or are they relatively non-violent?
Well, so it's interesting. So in South Africa, we haven't had any unprovoked shark bites by bronze whalers. So when you talk about shark bites, you talk about two different types. So there's the provoked bite. So if you catch a shark or you jump on a shark and it bites you, that's provoked. It doesn't count, basically. So it doesn't count. It's a provoked bite, and that's the thing. Whereas unprovoked bites are just random surfers, swimmers, people where you had no interaction with the shark beforehand. So we haven't had any here in South Africa. We have had many provoked bites because people fish for bronzies quite a lot. But in Australia, they have had a few unprovoked bites. And what we've seen recently is we're seeing quite large bronzies, so about 3 meters. In fact, we've got a research project where we're tagging them at the moment. We tagged 10 in False Bay in January and 10 in Gansbaai in December. And the bronzies that we were tagging were between 2.8 and 3.2 meters. So they're quite large sharks, and they're hunting fish inshore, particularly the yellowtail. So there's not, records of them biting people, but at the same time, we're seeing an increase in bronzy activity. We've got a lot of fish activity. And then if you then add a lot of bathers and surfers to that mix, there is the potential for there to be an issue. So that's why if we see a large bronze whaler close to shore on one of our operating beaches, we will just call people out of the water just to let the shark go past. Because also from the mountain, it's hard to tell the difference between a 3-meter bronzy and a 3-meter white shark. And it's only under like good spotting conditions, and if you can see from a certain angle, that you can tell the difference. So they do pose a small threat to people, but not a significant threat like white sharks do.
Fantastic. Thanks very much for that. Can you see the 3 questions and comments there, Sarah?
So the one, there's been orca sighting in recent weeks in Western False Bay. Yes, so that's Etty, I think they've called it. And yeah, they think it's feeding on fish. They have been going out, well, they were going out every day, and I think now it's just hanging around. I'm not sure how often they're going out, but yeah, they're doing as much. What they've managed to do, which is really interesting, is they've managed to take a genetic analysis of it. Well, they managed to take sort of a what you call muscle biopsy. That's the word I'm looking for. So they basically poke it with a spear gun and take a bit of flesh from it. It sounds much worse than it really is. Get a little bit of flesh, and from that you can do genetic analysis, but you can also do stable isotope analysis, and that's where you look at the and I'm not a stable isotope expert, so I probably won't explain it very well, but you can look at the different carbon in their muscle tissues, and you're able to tell what they've been eating. So you'd be able then to tell whether it was a orca that ate fish regularly or an orca that ate sharks or whatever. It's amazing stuff that you can do. I do not know the ins and outs of it to be able to describe it properly, but basically from taking a sample of muscle tissue, you can tell what the animal has been eating. So hopefully they've managed to do that. Hopefully we'll be able to get some more information on that when they've managed to analyze that. What is the current state of monitoring catches of sharks by DEF? It's now DEF. They keep changing their names. I also am not well aware. I don't think that there is a huge amount of monitoring. I know that there is supposed to be monitoring programs. There are new, we did there was a Shark and Ray symposium 2 years ago, which is like this biennial conference where shark and ray scientists get together. And there was a lot of talk of new systems being put in place, but I do believe that at the moment there isn't a massive amount of monitoring happening at sea. Obviously, when they come to shore, that's a bit of a different story. But now with the new slot limits that they've put in, which only happened from the 15th of January and really are just basically one of the best things, short of closing down the fishery, they're the best thing that you can do. So hopefully that will then be more strictly enforced. And yeah, but I don't know exactly what is happening with that, but I have heard that the monitoring is not particularly good at the moment. Just on that note, it's really important to realize that you can have a sustainable shark fishery, and there are examples all around the world. The same as a sustainable any type of fishery if it's well managed and well regulated. And interestingly, the yellowtail, the beach seine yellowtail fishery, so the trek netters that we see in Fishhook, those are actually, that is like a really successful, sustainable fishery. And so the idea is that eventually we would be able to get these sustainable shark fisheries, that the demersal shark longliners would be sustainable. But also we need to reduce our demand for fish, particularly when we're fishing here in South Africa for sharks that are then being exported over to Australia, because they've decimated their own shark populations that they were using for flake and chips. So
yeah, that's very interesting. There are two more comments here, 3 now I see, Sarah, and you're too modest to say what they say, but one of them says, "Thank you, Sarah, fantastic." And the other one says, "So interesting, thanks." I'll answer the question, has this been recorded? It has. We had problems with the Zoom recording last time, but we did make available the live recording, which is comes from Facebook. I suppose that's about one of the very, very, very few good things that come out of Facebook, but there you go. Sarah, thank you so much. I think the giving of your time and your energy to giving us this presentation is really, really appreciated. And I'm sure I can hear the claps and appreciation in the background over the airwaves there. So if there are no further questions,
it's a pleasure. And I must just say, sorry, that
yeah.
you know, we are here, you are all here in False Bay. We are here. Come to our centre on Musenberg Beach. Pop in and speak to us. Speak to the spotters and the net crew in Fishhook. And yeah, we're really, Sharkspotters is very much about openly sharing information. So come and ask any questions you have. You're welcome to pop in and ask any of us.
Super. Thank you very much indeed. Well, if there are no more questions, then we'll let you get back to sorting out those sharks and orcas, Sarah. Thank you again. Thank you, everybody. Hope you enjoyed it.
Cheers.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Very nice.